Robert, welcome to A&T. Thank you.
Happy to be here. Thank you for welcoming me here. And excited to be here with these wonderful students, faculty, alumni, and administrative staff, and you, Chancellor. It's just, you're storied and revered amongst all your peers and in the world of education. And I have to tell you, you all here at A&T are privileged to have him as a leader. So excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think all these folk are here to hear from you. And so let's get started. You were born in Denver during the civil rights time frame, and a community that has a history of its own. Tell us a little bit about your life and the experiences from your community during that window of time that helped shape you as a young African-American male growing up.
Yeah, I love telling this part of my story because it tells, I guess, so much about who we are as a people. I grew up, I'm fourth generation from Colorado on my father's side. On my mother's side, my Aunt Linda, my mother moved out there to do her master's and ultimately her doctorate degree in education, University of Colorado, Northern Colorado in Greeley. And I always tell people I grew up in what I call a beloved community. It was a segregated community. There was one Japanese family, but outside that, it was an African-American family in the neighborhood I grew up in. I always like to say I always felt cared for. I always felt loved. I always felt looked after. And you know what, in black communities, looked after, what that means. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? So what that did, though, was help instill some values around how to behave in a community, what your roles and responsibilities are within that community. And I always like to say that's what informs a lot of my life today. The fact that everybody has a role is an important part of being African American in advancing the condition of our community. You know, my father was an elementary school principal, and because of that, he had unique access to, I'll call it the city administration. There were very few people in our community who engaged with the administration of the city. And back in those days, Denver used to get a lot of snow. And so there would be snow days. It would snow, and we as kids would all celebrate because we could stay home for 3 days. Our parents weren't happy about that, but for a different reason than what you think. They weren't happy about it because they didn't plow our streets for 3 days. And what we noticed, because this was during the time of, again, desegregation of the schools, we had a bus that would come through my neighborhood and pick us up and take us across town. And, you know, day 3, they'd put one stripe down the major thoroughfare with the snow plows. We'd still have to dig out the cars, if people had cars, to get to that major thoroughfare, but the bus would come down, pick us kids up, and we'd go across town to school. Well, lo and behold, we go across town to school. Those streets were not just plowed, but they were dry, which meant they got plowed 3 days earlier.
Absolutely.
And being in a working class neighborhood, as you know, if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. And so you think about the number of families in our neighborhood that the parents did not get to go to work during that time. They had the delight to be home with us kids. But they were not getting paid, and it was hard for them to support their family. So I saw my father then take that on as a bit of a mission and created, they call it the North City Park Civic Association. But what he did was, because he had relationships in the city government, went and complained and brought civil action to bear. And so that when it snowed, we at least got that stripe down our major thoroughfare the day it snowed, not 3 days later.
Absolutely.
To me, that is being a responsible citizen in your community. It is important that we all think about what we can contribute and how we contribute to our communities. And this is something that is critically important about how we are going to advance our condition. There's a woman who lived next door to us, and, you know, like, I don't know where you guys grew up, but, you know, the schools would get out at 3:30, 4 o'clock, but parents wouldn't get out of work until 5. And so what did the kids do? And I remember she would take in all the kids, And in the basement area, you'd see the older kids tutoring the younger kids. Parents would contribute, different snacks and make sure, there was some nutritious activity that was occurring while the tutoring and teaching occurred until the parents came home. She never got paid for that. Okay, there was a guy in my neighborhood by the name of Homer Denny, and I like to use some of these names because these people aren't with us, but they had a pivotal role in my upbringing. And this was a young man at the time in his 30s that during the age of rocketry, you remember, I think you're a lot older than me, but anyway, I'm giving a hard time. We're about the same age, same vintage. But the age of rocketry, he decided to teach a group of us how to build rockets and the principles of it. I mean, for elementary school kids. Now, of the 8 kids that were in that little rocket club, 6 of them ended up being engineers or STEM students. Nobody ever paid him for any of this. But that was his contribution to our community. And I think that's an important lesson, and it's important what this institution provides for our community. You provide more engineers, more STEM students, more STEM graduates than really any other HBCU. And it's important that, and I know you do this, that you understand you have a role in your community to provide what you can provide to advance the condition of our community. Absolutely. And those are elements that I think about when I was growing up that I just learned through observation. And now I have to practice through action.